I'm Ben Ryman, and this is Behavior Speak.
A week for ABA services in order for it to be successful, in order to have those outcomes that we need. And as I explained earlier, we don't have that kind of access. We don't have that kind of setup, insurance, schools, centers. We don't have that. We're just now trying to make an impact in Turks and Caicos with ABA alone. Just having people understand what ABA is or knowing what ABA is. 15 years ago, people didn't really know about autism. So now we're on another wave of talking about ABA. So low intensity services in Turks and Caicos looks like one-on-one sessions, 30 minutes to 1 hour per week, a maximum 2 hours for people who can really afford it. That's what low intensity is. It was really that overwhelming support from the community and from others that really touched my heart and made me change my mind and say that I need to stay here and offer to the community what I did not have, what I did not have otherwise, if I can offer some kind of assistance, some kind of support for those families. I think that would be the best option. And honestly, the more I assisted others, the more help I got for my son.
My guest today is Maxcia Williams, a parent, advocate, and the first registered behavior technician in Turks and Caicos. When her son Israel was diagnosed with autism, there were no services, no roadmap, and very little understanding. So Maxcia did what so many parents in under-resourced communities are forced to do. She built something herself. From founding the Hope Foundation for Autism Awareness to supporting families across her community, Maxcia's story is about resilience, culture, and what it really means to create support where none exists. We talk about stigma, cultural beliefs, education, and what culturally responsive care actually looks like in practice. And we also hear about Israel, his self-advocacy, his journey into homeschooling, and how he became the author of What Happens Next. This is a conversation about love, determination, and reimagining what's possible. This episode is presented by our founding academic partner, the Doctor of Education in the field of Applied Behaviour Analysis program at Western University's Faculty of Education. Let's get into it. All right, Maxcia, welcome to Behavior Speak.
Thank you. Thank you for having me, Ben.
Yeah, excited. Okay, so Maxcia, let's start by having you just tell us a little bit about yourself, where you are, how you kind of got into behavior analysis and the autism space.
Sure. So yes, my name is Maxcia Williams. I am originally from the Bahamas, born and bred, and I presently living in Providenciales, Turks and Caicos Islands. I've been there for almost 20 years now. Time really goes fast. And so I'm basically a dual citizenship holder. My father, more likely he's from Turks and Caicos, so that's how I ended up getting descent there and started my family there as well almost 20 years ago. And my last son, I have 3 kids, but my last son, Israel, he was diagnosed with autism at the age of 2, almost 3 years old. And he kind of started the work out for me. There was limited options, limited intervention services available in the Bahamas as well as in Turks and Caicos where I live. And at that time, there was nothing much I could do. I was a teacher before, and I figured that pretty much I could help my son by using the teaching skills that I had. And that led me into forming a nonprofit organization, the Hope Foundation for Autism Awareness in Turks and Caicos a year after my son was diagnosed. And then after working and trying to see what I could do for my son at home, eventually I decided that I wanted to try to take up the work and start doing the work, not just with my son, but with others who were being diagnosed around me and other families who are having the same challenges. And that's how I got into ABA, connections with people, reading online, trying to find out where do I find help and assistance. And ABA seemed to come up a lot. And that's where it started for me. Information courses, talking to other people, did a little bit of it. But eventually I got to that I wanted to be RBT. I wanted to
Hmm.
become an IBT. I wanted to do the actual work and support those who needed the support that I needed. Um, about 17 years ago now, um, when my son was diagnosed. Actually, 15 years ago, because he's now going
Hmm.
to be 17.
Wow. Okay, so a lot of things happening there, starting with just how you ended up in Turks and Caicos, and then having 3 children, a third child, Israel, with autism, and then starting a foundation, teaching, learning more about ABA, and getting into the services. I'd love to kind of go back and start a bit at the beginning, maybe dive in and kind of ground us in place a little bit. For
Okay.
listeners that aren't familiar, how would you describe life in Turks and Caicos, and what's it like to raise a child with autism there?
Yeah. So, um, 15 years ago, living in Turks and Caicos, life is pretty much busy, lots of work
Hmm.
going on, lots of opportunities for development. Um,
Hmm.
Turks and Caicos is a very small country. We're located like south of the Bahamas.
Hmm.
Back then, we were just beginning a lot of development, and there are a lot of opportunities to work, to start new things, start new businesses, get on board with things that are obviously available in other countries.
Hmm.
And obviously, special needs was not on the top list of
Hmm.
development and, increase of awareness, knowledge, intervention. Awareness on the whole was just really not a thing, right?
Hmm.
So autism wasn't something that people spoke about. It wasn't something that people knew about really too much. So back then, it was not something that you would hear much about. People would keep their children at home, and
Hmm.
people would not talk about a diagnosis. People
Hmm.
understood that to be, um, you know, something is wrong. That
Hmm.
person is mentally retarded.
Hmm.
They felt sorry for you. I got a lot of pity, you know, people feeling bad, talking about autism as if it was some kind of death sentence. So
Hmm.
the awareness even of what autism was or what autism is wasn't present at that time.
Hmm.
Living
Hmm.
in Turks and Caicos at that time felt very hopeless. It felt as though there was nothing that I could do there. And one of the options I tried to seek was to leave, to actually leave the
Hmm.
country and try
Wow.
to to go somewhere else to try to get help. And my first option was to try to go home because,
Hmm.
home is home. And I'm like, here, if I can get home back to the Bahamas, I
Hmm.
could get some support. But they were overwhelmed as well with
Hmm.
children and limited resources. So it was the same, almost the same position. And
Hmm.
trying to split up my family. Some of us stay, some of us go. All of that played a role into what was happening in Turks and Caicos at the time. There was lots
Hmm.
of money. There was lots of opportunities, like I said, to work and have jobs, but access
Hmm.
to intervention and even diagnostic services was zero.
Hmm. Hmm. And what made you decide to stay in Turks and Caicos and start a foundation versus getting out and going somewhere where supports already existed? Was it mainly staying with family?
Yeah, family played a big role in it.
Hmm.
You could understand how much support is needed when you have a diagnosis. When you got a
Hmm.
diagnosis for your child, it's very difficult. Work, as well, finding a job in other countries. Like I said, I looked at the option of going back home. I couldn't get a transfer with my job. At the time I was
Hmm.
working at a bank. Those were options. Splitting up the family, like I said, it was something that we were prepared to do, but I didn't want to do that.
Hmm.
But also the community, and after I started to share my story, honestly, when we started the foundation a year later,
Hmm.
that really changed things for me. I began to share my story openly in the paper, in the newspaper, on the on the different news stations. I started to share my story with anybody who would listen on the street.
Hmm.
And
Wow.
people were receptive. People were
Hmm.
loving. They were, even though they didn't understand, for the most part, people were, you know, sympathetic. They tried to
Hmm.
understand and say, I'm sorry, and then other people began to share their story. People started to come up to
Hmm.
me and say, hey, I have a son, or I have a nephew, or I have a
Wow.
granddaughter, or
Yeah.
and tourists would come to me and say, "Hey, keep going. I have someone back home
Hmm.
who's going through this, and it's challenging even with, resources, but just keep pressing." It was really that overwhelming support from the
Hmm.
community and from others that really touched my heart and made me
Hmm.
change my mind and say that I need to stay here and
Hmm.
offer to the community what I did not have, what I
Hmm.
did not
Hmm.
have um, otherwise, you know, if I can offer some kind of assistance, some kind of support for those families. Um,
Yeah.
I think that would be the best option. And honestly, the more I assisted others, the more help I got for my son.
Hmm. Hmm. Wow. What an incredible feeling to have such a big impact so quickly. What was that like for you?
It 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 was overwhelming. It was almost surreal. I felt
Hmm.
like even with that diagnosis, I felt like a huge weight was off my shoulder because I was not
Hmm.
doing it alone anymore. I didn't have to figure out
Hmm.
everything alone.
Hmm.
People knew what was going on. I could be honest
Hmm.
and say, "Hey, we are struggling," but also I
Hmm.
could be supported. So it felt
Hmm.
overwhelming. It just felt like, you know, I don't have to worry about feeling ashamed in the public or feeling like,
Hmm.
no one is out there. There might have been, people who didn't understand, but I knew that I had a community somewhere. I had, people out there,
Hmm.
some that were supporting me. So it was just overwhelming to
Hmm.
say the least, that this kind of impact, just by sharing my story could make this
Hmm.
kind of impact.
Hmm. Hmm. I'd like to go back to some of the experiences of stigma around autism. When we spoke before, you talked about kind of Caribbean myths around disability and autism. Can you tell me a little bit about how those beliefs show up in everyday interactions with family, schools, and the broader community?
Yeah. So, yes, the myths, they are there, obviously.
Hmm.
Um, but they are unspoken, if I can use that. They're not
Hmm.
always spoken in terms of
Hmm.
people saying, I believe this or I don't believe that. But the
Hmm.
way they communicate with you or
Hmm.
say things to you, they'll be
Hmm.
like, people like children like that.
First secret word is Israel. Hmm.
Terms like that. Or they would be like,
Right.
you know, um, they they can act normal,
Hmm.
or you know
Hmm.
it'll be phrases that will come out in the community, in the schools, and as your daily interactions with people, the
Hmm.
myths that they have, that
Yes.
autism looks a certain way. Oh, he don't look like he have nothing,
Hmm.
he don't look like nothing
Hmm.
wrong with him. And I would say to myself, what does that even look like? Because I'm looking at my son as in, he looks, a little like me and a little like his
Hmm.
father. This
Hmm.
is what I'm seeing, right?
Hmm. Hmm.
But other people are like, he don't look like nothing wrong with him. So a lot of the conversations around what autism is, you know, would come out like that in the community. In the schools, it would definitely look like we don't have people who could handle that, that kind of thing. We're not equipped with what we need to handle that.
Hmm.
And it didn't matter whether or not um the child had extreme, problem behaviors, or if
Hmm.
they had, you know, anything that was visual or right in front and center. The minute you mention autism or any kind of special need, they
Hmm.
automatically weren't equipped to handle the case, you know, or handle
Hmm.
that student. So in the school system, it was already overloaded. As usual in a lot of schools, you have a lot of kids, you're understaffed, you have inclusion classrooms, you have that mixture, and teachers are already trying to keep their head above water. And then you throw
Hmm.
a child in the mix that has autism, and of course they're fearful, and they don't understand, and then they automatically feel like they can't do anything.
Hmm.
And the administrators, they want you to take the kids. They're like, take them somewhere else because we can't handle that. We can't handle that,
Hmm.
even without even knowing what it is that is being presented to them. So people hide their diagnosis. People
Hmm.
hide the fact that there's anything wrong with the child.
Hmm.
You know,
Hmm. Hmm.
and that could be very scary because of obviously safety issues
Hmm.
would come first. But people do it, and we continue to do it because
Hmm.
know, you want your kids in school. So those kind of things show up in the schools and in the community, but even more so amongst your family. The way people say to you, "Oh, he's just rude.
Hmm.
You need to beat him.
Hmm.
Oh,
Hmm.
You need to punish him. I had to tell him, go sit down, boy. Don't play with me." Like these kind of things would come out. Grandparents, parents,
Hmm.
I mean, other parents, your significant other, maybe, your aunts, cousins, family that you grew up with very close to you. They also have a lot of things going on. Even up
Hmm.
to today, my father, or the other day, my father said to me, because my son wears headphones because of his sensory issues,
Right.
he said to me, "You need to make that boy take that off. That's gonna make him deaf." You
Hmm.
know, like
Hmm.
he doesn't get that he's trying to regulate, and that's why I allow him to wear his headphones, right? But for him, even as long as this has been going on,
Hmm.
he doesn't get it. So it comes up, and I have to explain, to him what's going on. But it it
Hmm.
it's still that's going around. Even back then and now. That's still
Hmm.
it still happens. It still happens.
Yeah, that must have been incredibly difficult for you, especially sort of pre-foundation when you were all alone. Uh, what has it been like for Israel to sort of experience this sort of almost passive aggressive close family members speaking this way, behind his back, maybe in the same room? How has that
Mhm.
been for Israel?
Yeah. Like when he was younger,
Hmm.
I don't I don't know that he really paid attention much to it, or
Hmm.
he heard any of it, because Israel to me, he had never presented himself really as someone who has autism. Like
Hmm.
he and his brother, they're very close. They're a year and a half apart,
Hmm.
and they get into the same mischief. Even to today, they they like almost the same things. He
Hmm.
looks up to his big brother, so everything is, I want to be like my brother, or I want to
Hmm.
be my brother's best friend. So for Israel, I saw him as a kid who just was being a younger sibling. I'm the youngest
Hmm.
sibling. He got everything he wanted. He cried and complained, and everybody looked out for him. And it's almost a blessing that he was the last child, because he got all of that, attention
Hmm.
from everyone. So when other people would say things around him, or do things around him, he would just literally look at his family, like look at one of us, like what's this? Like
Hmm.
I don't know anything about this. This is not who I am, or this is not,
Hmm.
what I am. And
Hmm.
now that um he's able to communicate well, or
Hmm.
better than he was before. I think now he pays attention more to what people say, and
Hmm.
when he does have a question, or he is concerned about it, I do see sometimes he has anxiety that
Hmm.
comes out. Um, but he does come and communicate with me, and it's a lot,
Hmm.
because a lot of times because I'm the primary caregiver, he
Hmm.
comes and looks for me. So sometimes he has all these questions and all this overload of information that he wants
Hmm.
to share with me at one time, when he's already been thinking about it maybe for a while. So sometimes I'm like, where's this coming from? What are you
Hmm.
talking about?
Hmm.
And this is something that has happened maybe a week ago, or months ago, or sometimes a few years ago, depending
Wow.
on how he's able to process it.
Mm.
and sometimes we have to go over it over and over again. And I have to tell him, hey, that was a long time ago. It's okay.
Mm.
He had a situation with school where he advocated for himself to be homeschooled, which he is now.
Wow.
And anytime I mention school and I say something about maybe you should go back to school, he's like, no, I'm not going back to school. I can't go back to school.
Hmm.
And he's always thinking about that experience. And I have to show him, I'm not going to take you back to that school. Right. But
Mm.
maybe you can go to another school. And he's like, no, I can't do that. Like I'm not, I don't think that's a good idea, So he's able to communicate
Mm.
much better now. But back then he was just so happy and just so, you
Hmm.
know, mischievous and he was into life and just enjoying every moment of it. And he just liked toys and games and ice cream and oh my
Hmm.
gosh, popsicles. Like that was his thing. I mean, like sneaking popsicles in the middle of the night, him and his brother,
Hmm.
that was their thing. So I think he grew up very, very happy, very,
Hmm.
very loved, very, very supported. And even though I was stressing out,
Hmm.
he wasn't.
Hmm. Hmm. Yeah, that's amazing. And yeah, you must be so proud of him that he was able to sort of advocate for himself. What did that look like for Israel advocating for homeschooling?
Well, what when he was having some challenges in school, what happened was I gave him two books. I gave
Hmm.
him a red book and I gave him a blue book.
Hmm.
And I told him the red book has information that you would need to help you through your day in school. For example, if they
Hmm.
tell you to write something like a composition or a letter, which he struggles with,
Hmm.
I said, these are the steps. First, you read the question and you read it again, and then you look at the information. And like I gave him like some steps that he could use because he was
Yeah.
having issues whenever he would ask for help. Somehow or another, the teacher would make it like he was lazy or he wasn't
Hmm.
trying or, something untoward. And I had always told him that if he needed help, he could ask for help. So he was confused. He
Hmm.
couldn't understand why if I told him if he needs help, ask for help, then when he asks for help, he's not getting help.
Hmm.
He became overwhelmed because the teacher was like saying things to him like, you need to do it yourself. You need to,
Hmm.
right? And he wasn't getting the help he needs. So I said, okay, Israel, this is what we're going to do. We're going to write down these steps in this book.
Hmm.
I said, when you're at school, you can open up this book. And if anything comes up that you have challenges in, this is going to be the book. I said, but the blue book is where you're going to write all your feelings, all your emotions, everything that is hurting you, bothering you, whatever. You can write whatever you want. I said, the red book, you can take it out at school and anybody can see the red book. I said, but the blue book is only for me and you, mommy and you, right? I said, you can put anything. If you want to put bad words in there, if you want to, if whatever you want to, you can put in that book. I said, but that blue book, keep that in your bag. Don't let anyone see it except for me and you. I said, and when you get home, we will talk about your day. We'll talk about, what challenges you had and if you had to use the red book. And then if you had anything in the blue book and you want to talk about it, we can talk about that too. So that's what I did. So we were doing that for a couple of weeks. I was also trying to check in with the school to see if I could pop in and, figure out what's going on. I did that a couple times. I also was having a meeting with the principal and with the teachers and trying to figure out what's going on, and everything's going downhill. Everything is just not working out. I'm not connecting with them. I don't know what's happening. But this one particular time, Israel writes, he comes home very, very upset. And I say to him, hey, you need to write in your blue book. I said, start writing in your blue book. And he's like, but, and he's shut. And I'm like, listen, I understand, but I need you to write it in your blue book because he's naturally a better writer than he is a better speaker. So therefore, I try to encourage him to write. So finally, after a few times telling him to write, he decides to write and he sits down to
Hmm.
the table and he writes. And when he writes that out, he writes out everything. He's telling me about the teacher and what he didn't like and how they did this. And had somebody explained it to him, he would have tried better. And he's like, this isn't working. I think
Hmm.
homeschool is the best option for me.
Hmm.
Mommy,
Hmm.
please let me homeschool
Hmm.
because I think this is a better way. That's how he
Hmm.
put it. It's a better way.
Wow.
And literally that's how it started. And then I asked him to give me 3 reasons after I read it and I spoke to the school. I said, give me 3 reasons why I should homeschool you. And he's like,
Mm.
I'll do, I'll be able to spend more time with mommy. That was his first option.
Good
He's
one.
like, two, exactly. And he's like, two, I'll be able to do harder work because he felt like they weren't challenging him.
Oh,
'Cause
interesting.
yeah, they
Yeah.
kept giving him the same work over and over again, and it
Wow.
was annoying. And
Hmm.
then he said, I'll be able to do my work well. So he wanted
Mm.
to get it correct. So that was also getting him upset because he was like,
Mm.
they weren't challenging me. And then things that I needed help with, I wasn't getting it correct. So when
Mm.
he gave me those 3 answers, what could I say?
Great pitch. Yeah.
I couldn't say no. So that's how I ended up saying, well, Israel, if that's what you say, I'm going to support you all the way. I'm going to figure out a way that you're going to be able to be homeschooled. And that
Hmm.
started.
And how has that process been for both of you?
Yes, it's been a challenge.
Mm.
It's still not been easy
Mm.
because he still needs support. I work and I
Mm-hmm.
have to come home and still support him. And sometimes he's
Mm.
at home and, but he's very determined
Hmm.
because when he starts something, he doesn't want to stop until he
Yeah.
gets it done.
Yeah.
And that helps a whole lot. It took us about a, a whole school year to build his confidence back up. He felt like he couldn't do anything. He felt like, he wasn't able to accomplish things, but
Mm.
I got him a tutor, someone that could sit with him and help him with a few of the work that he was doing, of the courses he was doing, and they helped him very well by giving him affirmations and affirming his confidence. They also gave him a lot of movement activities. She gave them a lot of extra that I didn't
Hmm.
didn't ask for and wasn't paying for. She just was a great tutor. I'm sorry that I couldn't keep her, but at the
Hmm.
end of the day, she helped to build his confidence. And once his confidence was built back up, he was able to actually push himself. And I would hear him saying to himself, I can do this. I'm brave. I'm smart. I can. And I'd hear him
Hmm.
talking to himself and saying, and I would be like, Israel, if it's overwhelming, you could take a break. No, mommy, I can't take a break right now. I'm a little busy. And he would go back and he would go back and just push himself
Hmm.
to complete something. I gave him some goals. I said, you need to get a certain amount before you should move on to another task. And
Hmm.
he would press to that. And if he didn't get it, he'd say, Mommy, I didn't get it. I said, that's okay. You can try again. And he'd be like, okay, I'm going to try again. So it's been challenging and up and down, but Israel is extremely determined and
Hmm.
extremely um um just focused. He's more responsible than my older son. Like he just he has that, and I'm happy that he has that because it's very beneficial for his learning. He's trying to
Wow.
get his high school diploma by next year, when he turns 18,
Hmm.
and he wants to go to culinary school because he wants to
Hmm.
be a chef. And he looks it up online and he sees the requirement is that you have to have a minimum high school diploma. And he's like, Mommy, I'm gonna need your help because this is what I want to do. So I'm like, of course, I'll help you get your high school diploma. So
Hmm.
yeah.
And how did you fall in love with cooking?
I he likes to eat, boys, teenage boys, and I'm a pretty overactive mom. I'm always
Hmm.
involved in so much things, and I taught
Sure.
my kids a lot of things from early age. And one of the things
Hmm.
I did teach them was how to cook.
Hmm.
And I'm always busy. And as they got older, I was like, you got to help. Like they started helping from young in the kitchen. And I would always say, you got to help. You have to help.
Hmm.
And I taught them how to cook. And Israel would want certain foods. And I would say, I'm not cooking that. I'm not
Hmm.
making that today. And you would tell your kids certain things like, if you want that, you're going to have to get it yourself.
Hmm.
So when I said those things to Israel about cooking, I'd say, if you want to make rice, then you're going to have to make that yourself.
Hmm.
And being determined the way he is, he followed the steps, and I'd do a task list for him, and I'd say, hey, this is how you make rice, and he followed it to the T, and he made rice, and then he tried other things, go on YouTube and all of that, and he would follow recipes, and when I go to the store, he'd say, Mommy, I need these ingredients because I'm making X, Y, and Z today, and I'd be like, what do you mean? He's like, well, this is what I want for dinner, so you got to go and get the ingredients. So I'm like, okay, and I go and I get it, and he'll come and ask me sometimes if he doesn't understand a part of the recipe, but he would go out there, and then when he's done, he'd come and show me, and he'd be like, how does it look? Do you like it? Do you like it? I said, yeah, it looks good. How does it taste? He's like, it's good, so he fell in love with, I guess, I look at it as that structure of following a recipe and getting that outcome, getting that reinforcement, every
Wow.
time you do something, you get that
So
reinforcement in
cool.
steps. And he's always liked science. He's always liked math. And what is cooking? Science and math wrapped up together, right? And you have these outcomes, right? So that I think that's also comforting for him. I think it's reinforcing, it's comforting for him. And I think that's why he enjoys cooking, and I think that's why he wants to be a chef. In addition to loving to eat. Like
and maybe writing a cookbook. Israel is also an author, and his book, What Happens Next, such a powerful
Yes.
title. Tell me
Yeah.
about what that book represents for him and for you as his mom.
Yes. So what happens next is a book that Israel wrote when he was about 13 years old. He wanted to call the book I think it was I Am Israel Rigby or something like that. Something he wanted the book to include his name. But his dad had said one day that maybe we should call the book What Happens Next. And I was like, why? Israel wants to call the book, The Life of Israel Rigby or something like that. And he's like, because Israel always asks what happens next. And I'm like, that is so true. And, so I pitched the idea to Israel. I was like, Israel, we're thinking of the book being called What Happens Next. And Israel's like, I want the book to call, called The Life of Israel Rigby. It's my book.
Yep.
I said, yeah, I know. And he's like, we were talking, and then he's like, so after that, what happens after that? And what happens next after? And I said, Israel, this is why we want to call the book What Happens Next, because you always want to know what happens next. And then he finally gave in, and he was like, oh, okay. Like he just was like, I got it.
Yeah.
His previous teacher, the teacher that he had when he was at the school, she had left the school, but before she left the school, she was his best teacher. But before she left the school, she used to have Israel write a journal, and every day he used to write this journal, and he would have to draw a picture and write about his day. And that was like when I found out that Israel was so, he was able to express himself better in words than, like I said, actually communicating verbally. And when I saw it, he had I think it was like a month or so of journal entries
Wow.
about what was going on. And when I saw the way he wrote, I said, you know what? Maybe we should turn this journal into a book, because this is talking about his day, it's talking about his life, it's talking about who he is, how he sees the world, what he sees as how the world looks. As a part of the book, it's talking about, what do you like, or what do you don't like, or what are you afraid of? And he's like, I'm afraid of lions and tigers and bears. And then he's like, and dogs and cats. So it's hilarious. He went from lions and tigers and bears to simple animals like dogs and cats. He's like, he's trying to tell you, I'm afraid of them all. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter their size,
Yeah.
So at the end of the day, it was his expression. He talks about cooking as well in the book, and his favorite recipe to cook is spaghetti and meatballs. So he spoke about that, and he spoke about, the different things that he was able to do about it, soccer, and, when he got to speak, and different things that he was able to do in his life. But Israel is so, like I said, determined, and he's also so particular that he was involved in the whole process of the book. So every time the illustrator brought, the pictures, Israel will have to look at them and approve them. And he helped with the lining up of the book. He wanted everything to look a
Nice.
particular way. He wanted the lines to be under the words, and
Wow.
he was the one who edited it and a lot of the lineups and everything. And he was like, "No, mommy, like this. I don't like this," So he fixed those things, and he was very meticulous about
Hmm.
how everything looked, and he approved, the final the final copies and the drafts and all of that. He was involved in it, and it was great for Israel to do that. I
Hmm.
was proud. I am proud. I was happy, but Israel was proud.
Hmm.
Israel
Hmm.
was happy. He got a book that wasn't me, you know, trying to tell him what to do or how to express himself,
Right.
or someone teaching him what it is to write a book and what it should sound like or how it should flow. It was him, his words,
Hmm.
how he wanted to say it. And like I said, even the way he wrote things and where he would put exclamation marks and where he felt like it should, you know, be, like I said, very extreme. He would start at the top of the extremities and then went back to down. But most people would say, start subtly and then go, that's not his style. He
Hmm.
was like, this is me. And that meant a lot to me, that he got to express himself as himself, and no one, was able to critique him, even me, to tell
Hmm.
him what he should and shouldn't do. We're actually working on part two, is the teenage years. I'm trying to
Hmm.
finish it off. But yeah, it was a real great accomplishment and opportunity for Israel to express who he is as a
Hmm.
person.
So this sounds like things really started with that teacher that really pushed him to journal and write every day.
Yes.
It sounds like that writing also transformed or sort of moved into the blue book usage in the school system that you created, and then into kind of what matters. It sounds like his ability to advocate for homeschooling, really he learned to advocate through all of these sort of different avenues. It's pretty cool. Pretty
Yeah.
cool. I'd like to talk a little bit about your advocacy and kind of go back a bit. You helped support the opening of the first autism classroom in the country. What did it take to make that happen?
Yeah, that was that was super amazing as well. That was a lot of community effort. That was the community. That was not just me.
Hmm.
The community, like I said before, they really came together after we started to share our story, and we
Hmm.
really made things known as to other people were needing assistance and help too. It took a lot of building rapport,
Hmm.
connecting. It took a lot of vulnerability. It obviously took a lot of money, but the money
Hmm.
was the easy part.
Wow.
It was the easy part.
Hmm.
It was touching lives and connecting with people on a human level that made that
Hmm.
happen,
Hmm.
where people knew that I was not just representing me and Israel and my family, that there were countless families,
Hmm.
some families that didn't even have, you know, any support. The support that I have, it was a blessing that I had all that support from family and from community. There were people
Hmm.
who didn't have any of that because they were too embarrassed or too ashamed or too um or didn't understand in order to reach out for help.
Hmm.
And how do they even do some of them had given up. Some of them had said, well, whatever it is, whatever will be, will be. But
Hmm.
here I am going out and telling everyone about what's going on.
Hmm.
And people are coming to me and saying, Maxia, I want to help.
Hmm.
I want to do something. How can I help? And the corporate communities of the Turks and Caicos really stepped up. We had the guy from Brian's air conditioner. He just installed an air conditioned unit and he just gave it to us free of charge.
Hmm.
People who built the actual classroom, the owner of the construction company actually contributed to building. He was on the roof sometimes building.
Wow.
that unit. The flooring, another company just donated the flooring. And then our main sponsor, which is Turks and Caicos Banking Company, which is up to this day, they're still our main sponsor. They sponsor
Hmm.
our Autism Awareness t-shirts every year in
Hmm.
April. They've been doing it for years. They just donated thousands of dollars to start the classroom up. They just
Hmm.
gave it. They didn't put any, you know, other formalities on. They didn't say that I have to have this or I needed to do that or whatever. They just
Hmm.
gave, and
Hmm.
they just believed, and they just hoped with us that we
Hmm.
could get this project done. It was amazing the way people
Wow,
opened
that's
up their
amazing.
hearts
Yeah.
to help, and it was just done. Like the school where we had the classroom, they just said, "Okay, we'll do it." You know what I mean? Y'all can have this property over here, and you just, you can have it. Like people just gave, and it was amazing to see
Hmm.
how people did that. And I have a saying that I say, I'm forever impressed by the hearts of men. I'm not impressed by money. I'm not
Hmm.
impressed by things, but I'm always forever impressed by the hearts of men. And that was one of the times when I was impressed by the
Hmm.
hearts of the people that came together to cause that classroom to be open. That was one of the greatest moments of our foundation, of our family, and our community when it
Wow.
relates to autism.
Yeah, what an incredible experience. What have you learned about systems change when you're building infrastructure from the ground up?
Yeah, I learned nothing because I was nowhere involved in that.
Hmm. Hmm.
I didn't, but internally, in terms of running a school,
Hmm.
running a program, obviously for children with special needs or autism, and the
Hmm.
work that it takes, you know, in that part, yeah, I
Hmm.
learned so many different things about families, about how we need to work together, about the client or the child being first. I
Hmm.
learned about, things can't be free. They
Hmm.
really just can't be just free.
Hmm.
Somebody has to pay something physically, time, monetary, something has to be paid into it because sometimes people don't appreciate the work that that went into what you had to build. you
Hmm.
know I learned about people changing, and even though people that may have a good heart, that their agenda sometimes is their own, and
Hmm.
having to accept that maybe it's time to move on. Maybe it's
Hmm.
time to move on to another aspect or another field or another area. But it doesn't mean that the work that you do or the work that you have done, doesn't
Hmm.
add up, or it wasn't important, or it didn't make
Hmm.
an impact, right? People remember
Hmm.
these things. And even now, people remember this. People remember the experience we had with that classroom. People remember how, they come to me and they say, "Oh, I remember when, we did this and you were the only one who supported us and we didn't have anywhere else to go." They
Hmm.
remember, and it's about that child and the impact. And when I see the children now at Israel's age, now 16 or almost 17, those little kids who were in the classroom with us,
Hmm.
and I see them talking, and I
Hmm.
see them interacting and in sports and, doing things that, I can smile because the impact that we made at an early age with that classroom,
Hmm.
phenomenal. It
Hmm.
it 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 changed the course of the lives of children with autism in Turks and Caicos. I
Hmm.
guarantee you.
Well, let's talk a bit about ABA and kind of how you found it.
Yeah.
It was 2017, I believe, when you had lost your job and you had attended this government hosted ABA workshop. Tell me a little bit about that experience and kind of how ABA clicked for you.
Yeah. So, like I said, I had heard about ABA, and I had um done, I don't even know if I did it, but I tried a few techniques
Hmm.
rather that
Hmm.
a BCBA who was visiting the island or living
Hmm.
there for a little
I
bit
see.
had said when Israel was first diagnosed with autism, and I
Hmm.
was connecting and trying to find, resources, like I was saying, trying to read online and all of that. So I came
mm,
across ABA, and
mm,
ABA was very strict. That's
mm,
how it was, that's how it was presented to me. It was very rigid, it was
mm,
very controlled, but it was shown to give high outcomes and high results, right?
mm,
And at that time, Israel was speaking, but he wasn't having any conversation. His language, skills was not very, good. And I was looking for him to improve that. And so I looked at ABA a little bit, and I tried a few of the techniques that the BCBA had asked me to use at
mm,
home. But shortly after, she was gone, and I didn't
mm,
have any support anymore.
mm,
So I was doing a lot of stuff on my own and trying to look at, Facebook groups and different moms and different people doing things and trying to figure out what I should do about Israel. But
mm,
then fast forward, like I said, in 2017, my job became redundant. I was working at the bank at Scotiabank at that time.
mm,
And after that, I had started a job at CIBC bank as well. I worked
mm,
there for a few months, and then I worked at another financial institution for 2 years, and then that job became redundant. And
mm,
I'm like, okay, so what's happening here? You
mm,
know? And after when we were getting into the pandemic and I went back to work the following year, 2021, um, I I was like, this is not working. This is not where I want to be. This is not what I
mm,
want to do. And so I decided, I said, that's it. I said, after the summer, after the kids are done with school for the summer, I'm going to leave and I'm going to, well, they were making me redundant. I was like, I'm going to just not go back to
mm,
finance. I'm not going
mm,
back into that industry anymore. I didn't know what I wanted to do. I just knew that I didn't want to go back into finance.
mm,
So I took a break. And during that time, being an active person, that was very hard for me to
mm,
like take a break. So obviously I was doing a lot of different things, trying to find different things to do. I was doing like an online job. I started like a health thing that I was doing, trying to make a little money on the
mm,
side. I
mm,
was doing all kind of different things from home. Trying to figure out what I want to do. Obviously they weren't making any money like that, but it was, it was enough. But during that time, at that break, the government, the mental health department was hosting this workshop um, that they were calling it at the time a workshop on ABA.
mm,
And I said, I'm going to go because this sounds like a joke.
mm,
But as the director and the chairman of the Hope Foundation, I'm going to show up, and I'm going to ask questions and I'm going to
mm,
get their certificate and I'm going to just, be there. And I planned
mm,
to be a thorn in their side.
mm,
I wanted to debunk whatever they were going to try to do, obviously.
right.
I wanted to show them that just holding a workshop here and there isn't enough. This isn't
Mm,
going to help, and this is not going to intervene in
mm,
the children's lives. It
mm,
was open to parents, so I was like, okay, I'll go there. And I said, oh, I might find some other parents who are willing to support me and are willing
mm,
to come on with the Hope
nice.
Foundation, people that I can help as well. So I'm still looking for connections, still looking for advocacy, right? I'm still on my values track, but
Mm,
I have a hint of frustration and anger
Sure.
behind this because I'm like, the government is not doing enough. So we get into this course and they start talking about stuff and I like I said, I know a little bit about ABA, so I'm flourishing. I'm
mm,
the top parent student. I'm getting all the little quizzes right and
mm,
all of this, and I'm just going with the flow.
mm,
And I'm hearing the parents' story and I kind of get more relaxed and I'm like, I'm not gonna blow this event up. I'm gonna
Yeah.
be relaxed. So I was like, let me try this.
Mm.
So I'm just going with the flow. But our presenters were just so caring, understanding.
mm,
The presentations were so well put together. it was just amazing how they came and approached us with this. And this
Wow.
is when I found out about the role of the RBT. I had never
Mm,
heard about it. I only heard about the BCBA,
yes.
but at the end of the course, they started to ask us if anybody was interested in becoming an RBT. And I'm like, what's an RB? What's an
Mm-hmm.
RBT? I've never heard of this before. And the instructor started to explain it to us and give us more information. And there was a part of the course where they were going to stop, but the parents were so interested in what we were doing at that time
Hmm.
that they asked them, they said, anybody, can you please ask the government if we can continue? Because we're really enjoying this. We're really getting lots of information. We really like what's going on. And even then, we didn't know what we were doing. We didn't know we were doing the 40-hour training. We did.
Mm,
We just were so hungry for the information, and it was benefiting us so much. We wanted him to continue,
hmm.
and so we continued. The first part of it was online. We continued. I mean, it was in person, and then we continued online. And at the end, that's when he spoke to us more about the RBT. At that time,
Hmm.
we had about 5 parents who were strong. They were like, they want to do the RBT. So we approached the government and we asked them if they could pay for us to
Hmm.
sit the exam, travel, go and sit the exam. We are ready, we're prepared. The BCBA, who
Hmm.
was the course instructor, he said, yes, my people are ready, they're able to do it.
Hmm.
And all of that, I will sign for them as, to say they're competent in order to take the exam, because I trained them well.
Hmm.
And the government said to us, yeah, we'll get back to you guys on it.
Hmm.
And the momentum went down for those other 4 or 5 parents, but my
Hmm.
momentum stayed high. I was not.
Yes.
So I kept following up. I kept asking questions. I kept saying, hey, guys, what are y'all doing? Like, I need to get this done. I need to
Hmm.
speak to the Minister of Education. I
Hmm.
need to speak to anyone that's going to help me. And they never followed through. But
Hmm.
I decided that I needed to do this on my own. So
Wow.
I went back to Theo, who was the BCBA who did the course, and I said
Hmm.
to him, listen, the government is not answering us. They're not trying. I said, but I really want to do this. How do I do this? And he said, Maxie, I have full confidence in you. I know you can do this because you
Hmm.
know everything. You did the material very
Hmm.
well. You understand it. And I feel like you can do it. And that's when he said to me, I will ensure that you have everything that you need to do it.
Wow.
Um, all the background stuff. So he did the proper documentation. He
Hmm.
signed off everything. He put me in contact with people that could help me with my competency assessment. He made
Hmm.
sure that I had all any answers to questions I had. He showed me, websites where I can go and study. He was there for me. He
Hmm.
became a mentor to me. He's still a mentor to me. He
Hmm.
became someone that I could call on whenever I got stuck
Hmm.
into something. He would say, Maxia, don't worry. I got you. This is where
Hmm.
you go. This is how you get this done.
Hmm.
And that's how I was able to sit that exam. I had one shot
Hmm.
because the BACB was about to close its doors to
Right, of
everyone.
course.
Yes, and I had one shot. I thought I had 2. I took the exam in November, but they didn't give me another chance if I
Hmm.
failed to take it in December. And when I saw that, that added another layer of pressure on me. But
Wow.
I was determined. And I
Hmm.
remember staying up late, after the kids came home from school. I helped them with everything, got them in bed, then I'm up looking at a computer screen, looking at questions, reviewing questions, going over the material in my mind. But I was determined.
Hmm.
And obviously, I was successful as well in becoming the first RBT in Turks and Caicos.
And the only RBT.
And the only one, because there was no other hope or chances for anyone else either. Yeah, that is so true. I was the first and the only one in Turks and Caicos. Yes, that was overwhelming, to say the least. When I got back
Wow.
home, the amount of support I had, the amount of people that were so happy and proud of me and were willing to, you know, do whatever they could to support me so that I could support others.
That's an incredible journey towards the RBT, especially when I interview so many guests from, the U.S. and we talk about, how you got into the field and what your story is. The RBT story is quick. I got my
Yeah.
RBT, moved on, went to school, got my master's, got my PhD, whatever they did. But yours was a long and difficult and arduous and so many people involved to uplift you to get to this point and to become the first and only RBT.
Yeah. Yeah. Definitely.
And so now you're so this is end of 21, I guess, and you're the only certified RBT in Turks and Caicos. What was the next step? Where did you take that?
Yeah. So the next step was, where do I find work? Obviously, I'm still upset, disappointed, and frustrated with the government. I have no desire whatsoever to work for the government at all, like zero. And of course, everybody's sending me that way. Maxia, you should work for the government. They need somebody. They need someone like you and whatever. And I'm like, I don't want to be mixed up in politics. Honestly, I do not. Because when I do my work, I would like to be free. I would like to be able to do my work the way I need to do it, compassionate, ethical. I want to be, I don't want to be revolving door of clients, of people just coming in and going out. I don't want that. I don't want to be burnt out where I can't give 100% to my clients because I'm burnt out because I have so many different clients. I want to be impactful, but I don't want to be, wrapped up in politics where.
Second secret word is hope. Hey, everybody. If you're a BCBA or master's level behavior analyst thinking about doctoral training, here's a quick heads up. The application deadline has been extended for the Doctor of Education in the field of Applied Behaviour Analysis at Western University's Faculty of Education. You now have until April 12th, 2026 to apply for fall intake. This fully online 3-year cohort program is designed for working professionals with potential for a BCBAD pathway with a qualifying dissertation in practice. If you're ready to step into leadership, academia, consulting, or policy, check the links in the show notes to learn more and apply, or email edrecruit@uwo.ca with questions.
People are telling me, okay, the president premier says this is what we need to do based on the budget and what we have promised. And I don't want to be in that drama. I have enough drama in my life. I have a lot of things going on and I don't want to add any more fuel to this fire that is already burning. So I decided that I would get my business license. And that's what I did. I got a business license. I told them what I want to do. They had no idea what I wanted to do, but they gave me a business license. They said, hey, this sounds like education. So we're going to put you under education and give you your business license. They said I needed a clearance letter from the Ministry of Education, which I got. I went to the Ministry of Education. I told them what I do. They was like, okay, write a letter and say what you do. I said, okay, I'll write a letter. I did that and I got the license. Then I said to myself, what do I do from here? And I said, let's think about it. What did Theo tell us that we need? So I knew that I needed toys and materials. I already had the knowledge and the information and all of that. And I said, okay, so all I need is a bag, basically, or a few bags and my car. And yeah, so I'll be a traveling RBT. So that's what I said. I said, I have the license so I can work and I have my car and I have lots of bags because I like bags. So I can do the work. So I decided I'll become a traveling RBT. And that's what I said. I said I would just go to people's homes or go to schools. And if anybody needs me, I'll do the work there. And that's what my initial plan was. And so I got my certification in that November. The following year, April, I was doing World Autism Awareness Month activities. I still haven't gotten any jobs as this traveling RBT. I'm still trying to figure out what I'm going to do. How am I going to myself? How am I going to, get out there and start working? And I'm selling T-shirts at a local food store, which I do every year in April. And I meet this guy. Well, I see this guy pass, and he passed by very quickly, goes out the door, and I laugh to myself because I'm always out there every April. And I remember the first April I went out there, the manager of the store told us we couldn't solicit people. So they said, you could sit there, but you can't call people and say, come on over and see what we got. So I would just sit there very quietly. But the reaction of people just made me laugh all the time because they would run. Like sometimes they would go so fast, I'm afraid they're gonna hurt themselves trying to
Wow.
exit the store.
Yep.
So the guy that passed me, he did a similar thing. Like he was walking so fast that he almost, you know, those doors that open and close. Like he
Yes.
almost hit the door.
Oh
And
gosh.
I laughed to myself. You know, I just laughed,
Yeah.
and I'm like, how can I be so intimidating just sitting
Yeah.
here? You know
Yeah.
what I mean? Not even saying anything. I'm
Yeah,
not even
exactly.
making any direct eye contact with anybody, but the behaviors that people are, you know, that are happening. So obviously I'm analyzing behaviors. I'm sitting there doing full-blown ABA while I'm while okay. So I'm like, okay, that was one. And me counting, that's two. You know, and I'm laughing because I'm counting the amount of people who are like darting out of the store to
Right.
try to avoid me, right? Now, the store manager has long left, but I have kept that attitude of don't solicit, right? So I still don't solicit people. So I could have solicited, but I just kept that attitude. I just thought it was interesting to watch. But when he ran out, he ended up turning back around. And when he came back, he said, hey, are you that girl, that lady who does the autism stuff? Because he's seeing now the autism t-shirts.
Yes.
He's seeing Hope Foundation. I'm like, yeah, I think so. I'm not sure. He's like, yeah, so y'all have a foundation. And I said, yes, that's me. So we get to talking about the foundation, the work that we do and all of that. And then I say to him, you know, and recently I just got my RBT. And he's just like, what? So he stops me. He's like, you know, because I'm saying it like, you know, there's no big deal. And he's like, hold it. What did you say? I say, yeah, I got my RBT. And obviously, like I said, if I didn't know anything about the RBT, people in my community didn't really know anything about the RBT. So this is like one of the first people in my community who's acknowledging this RBT. So I'm saying to him, you know, I just got my RBT. And he's like, yeah. And he's like, what are you doing now? I said, I'm not doing anything right now. I said, I was thinking of, you know, being a traveling RBT, but I haven't gotten any, you know, buddy to work along with us yet. But, you know, I still do the foundation stuff. And yeah. And that's when he said to me, I've been looking for an RBT.
What?
I said, looking for an RBT? Where have you been looking? He said, I work with Grace Bay Medical Center, and, you know, we're trying to start a team up there. And I'm trying to get, you know, occupational therapists, psychologists, you know,
Wow.
people I'm trying to get is an RBT. He said, but I haven't been able to find one, but here you are. So I'm saying, who are you? I've never heard of you. I've never seen you on our very small island. I've never even heard of someone trying to build this team. You know, I said, there was no indication of it ever. No, and I'm like, as much people know me, somebody would have said something to me to say, Maxcia, check these people out. They're trying to find an RBT. But he had just been starting to get this team together. It was like really, really new. And he was trying to get good people together to see if he can, you know, form this team that's never been done before, multidisciplinary team that's never been done in Turks and Caicos. So he was really like trying to figure out who he should include in this team. And that's when we met. He said, let's meet, let's talk, you know, let's talk. Like, I want you to meet other people who are going to be a part of this team. And I said, sure, I'm open to have a conversation. But I was still very skeptical because I was like, I've heard of this guy before. And this is weird that I'm just sitting here selling t-shirts. And all of a sudden someone comes along and say, I was looking for an RBD. And I'm like, So of course I was still very, very skeptical. And but I still met with him, and I met with the other team members, and everything just started unfolding. They started to say they wanted independent contractors. They weren't looking for people to, you know, work a 9 to 5. You set your own schedule, you know, all the admin and finance is handled by the center, but you make your own schedule, and I mean, it was like my dream job was being unfolded to me when I was speaking to the
Yeah.
HR. Yeah. So of course, I'm also very scared again, because I'm like, this is surreal now. This is
Mm.
just ridiculous. I've been
Hmm.
praying, asking God
Mm.
to put something in my, path so I can
Mm.
support. And here is this job coming just with all the trimmings, everything that I need, the flexibility,
Mm.
what you call it, the work that I want to do,
Mm.
the restrictions are not there. The team is awesome. I'm meeting
Mm.
people that are, encouraging, people who have similar values that I
Mm.
have. And, they're not looking at me like I'm crazy when I speak to them about stuff. And then
Mm.
they know about the things I'm talking about. And I'm like, wow. So I'm there sitting down, but I'm acting very professional. I used to be in banking. So I'm saying, thank you
Mm.
very much. That sounds great. In my mind,
Mm.
I'm like, oh my God. But outwardly, I'm very stoic. I'm
Yeah.
just sitting there and I'm like, so when will we get that documentation in process?
Mm-hmm.
Now
Sure.
I'm like, this needs to be in writing for me to even think that this can be possible.
Mm.
And of course, they're like, okay, yeah, we'll get the contract to you in a few weeks. And they sure did. And everything that was in the contract lined up to what the HR manager was saying, to what the
Mm.
team was offering. And I was like, whoa. And
Hmm.
that's how it started. That's how I started the work. That's
How
how I
can this
started.
be real, right? How can this be real?
Yeah, definitely. It was surreal. It really wasn't. I didn't expect it. And I like I said, I couldn't believe it, because
Mm.
it was literally what I needed at that time. Like, I needed that flexibility even for Israel. I needed to be able to be with him and be able to do a lot of things with him. And that allowed me to be flexible as well.
Mm.
And
Mm.
it allowed me to connect with a lot more resources that also helped Israel, people, human resources. So
Mm.
it was surreal, but
Wow.
it was a great day, obviously.
Absolutely. And how does practicing as an RBT in a small island community differ from what people might imagine ABA would look like elsewhere?
Well, you touched on it a little bit when you talked about the process of
Mm.
becoming an RBT. Even now, I became an IBT with the IBAO. And the
Mm.
process for one of my colleagues who I was supervising, she um, it was difficult for her to do it.
Mm.
Like you
Mm.
said, passing, you would hear other RBTs just say, "Yeah, I went and I got the RBT." It's
Yeah.
not that easy for us because of access.
Mm.
Um, my company is called Accessible Behavior Care because I want access, not just financial access, but actually having a human resource is a restriction. You could have all the money in the world, but then what if there's
Mm.
no one there to do the actual work or the
Right.
intervention you
Right.
need available? So access for us is huge in the Caribbean. Um, becoming an RBT and working as an RBT in a small country like Turks and Caicos, you're famous. I'm
Mm.
famous. People, I didn't have to do a lot of advertising, and once I started working and they knew where I was, people would
Mm.
come and just be like, "I need to see Maxia. I need to see
Mm.
People were calling me Dr. Maxia at one point.
Wow.
I had to correct so many people and so many
Mm.
parents not believe me. They were like, "You're being, you're just being so, whatever. You're a doctor. Just go
Mm.
back and get your doctorate." I'm like, I
Right.
haven't even done anything
Mhm.
close to a doctorate. What are you talking about?
Mhm. Mhm.
It's like Dr. Maxia and all of my coworkers and colleagues, they're making fun of me. "Hi, Dr. Maxia, someone's here." And I'm like,
Oh
oh
my
my,
gosh.
this is crazy. I was like, this is getting out of control. I'm not a
Mm.
doctor, but I became more famous than I was. I was already popular because of the Hope Foundation. And
Mhm.
now becoming more popular as the first and the only RBT. So everybody's coming to me with all their problems, all their issues. I'm referring them and saying, "Listen, I'm not a medical doctor. You need to go and see a
Mhm.
medical doctor. I'm not a pediatrician. You need to take the child to the pediatrician. I'm not a nutritionist. I'm not I have to keep explaining to people, like,
Mm.
do I do as an
Mm.
RBT?" And that's a challenge. Also, we follow the trainer module. So for example, I spoke about my colleague that I supervise, and I'm under supervision, and then my supervisor supervises me, and I supervise other people. And I also have another young lady who started recently who wants to become an IDT, and she's under me as in supervision. That looks very different, I understand,
Mm.
in the other countries,
Mhm.
particularly
Mhm.
where RBTs aren't allowed to have business license. I had a business license from day one.
Yeah.
We don't have, we're just recently starting a regulation system, like a health regulation authority, but we didn't have it at that time. So
Mm.
health regulations, or regulations for people who do work like me, mental health persons, as well as RBTs, psychologists, those kinds of people, they have
Mm.
anything. So that looks different as well. Um, we don't have insurance that covers all of these costs. So for
Of course.
example, you'd have people come in and then they have their, no, they pay out of pocket. If you don't have a private insurance, which still only covers maybe 10 sessions a year or something like that, um, you have to pay out of pocket. So
Mm.
I'm a superhero to the parents, and I am completely honored as well that people are paying out of pocket to come
Mm.
and see me even just once a week is
Mm.
crazy. It's a
Mhm.
lot of money. Um,
Humbling. Yeah.
yeah, it humbles me. I'm honored every day to do the work 110%, because I'm like, these people are not getting this money back, and they're looking for outcomes. They're looking for
Mm.
positive outcomes. They're
Mm.
looking for to see generalization and maintenance within their kids. They're looking to see socially significant changes. I have a
Mm.
lot of weight on my shoulders, but it's also humbling because
Mm.
that's a lot of money. That's a
Mhm.
lot of money and you can't get it back. You like you're you're giving this to me. Like you're
Mhm.
not claiming it through your insurance. You're giving it to me, right? So it's humbling, and that's very, very different. When I went to Jamaica and I spoke at a conference for the behavior analysis, it's a organization that's located in the US. I forget what it's the acronym.
The Black Applied Behavior
Yeah.
Analysis group. Yeah.
Yes. Yes. BABA. Yes.
Yeah.
Definitely. All these acronyms all, tongue
Of
twisting up.
course.
But
Yeah.
yeah, but BABA. And we spoke in the front of mostly Americans, Black Americans that were there. Um, but the
Yeah.
majority of the speakers were from the Caribbean. And we touched a little bit about this, how it looks so different. And I mean, people they were amazed as to the work that we do. They were like, so how do you live? How do you eat? How do you
Mhm.
pay
Mhm.
for things? And I'm like, people are paying out of pocket. So you can understand why my favorite topic, or the topic that I wanted to speak on most importantly, was low intensity services in the Caribbean. And we get outcomes from this. We have to be very intentional in the Caribbean. We can't say, we're going to work on, random things. We have to work on
Mm.
socially significant things, and we have to be very intentional when we go into the
Mm.
room. If we have
Mm.
30 minutes with a child, we don't have time for a lot of, you know, chit chat and a lot of, getting set up. We got to be set up and ready to go. We got to
Mm.
start with our pairing. We got to get working on our programs right away, and we got to start. We have to continue to offer services straight to the door.
Mm.
And I always tell my supervisees this. I said, we're not off the clock until that door closes behind that
Mm.
parent and that child. So we're working straight through to the door. The parent has to schedule their times to follow up with us and talk, because I don't have time to chit chat with you in the waiting room about what what's going on with chit
Mm.
chat. You have to schedule that time, because we don't have time to do that. All of our time is consumed in doing the work, because we have to
Mm.
be very intentional, and we
Mhm.
for socially significant outcomes. We're looking for things that are going to be meaningful in the child's lives.
Mm.
We're looking at the goals that parents lead. So a lot of our programs are also parent-led. We use parent-led goals. The goals
Mm.
come from parents, and it doesn't matter too much what we think is important, but whatever that parent feel is important, we do
Mm.
that. The parents say, I want my child to be able to just go to church with me, be able to sit down. That's what we're doing. We're working on attending. You understand what I'm saying? How do we get this child to sit down for 5 minutes, 10 minutes, 15 minutes, and increase that time over time? That is a big deal for the parent. That's a weight off their shoulder that their child can sit somewhere when they arrive. Academics is so far, or, other things are so far on the list. They're just like, I can't even sit down somewhere. I can't somewhere. And I don't have anyone else to keep my child, so they're always with me. So therefore, so these are the kind of things that are challenging for us as an RBT. We don't make a lot of money naturally or regularly. You don't make a lot of money even in the bigger countries, but imagine how that looks in the in the smaller countries. We don't make a lot of money, but people are giving us their hard-earned money. When we, as independent contractors, when people don't show up, we don't get paid. Like, it's you like, oh, I was sick, or we're traveling. That's it. Your money is $0 and 0 cents. There's no compensation. And I also had to have an honest conversation as well, or honest conversations as well with my supervisees when they wanted to get into this role. I'm saying, listen, guys, I make this look good, but this is not always, this is not all it's cracked up to be. It's not that glamorous. I make it look good, but you have to really be loving this work. You have to love the clients. You have to love the work, because you're going to have to give 110%, 120% sometimes. And sometimes you may not get paid for it because you're trying to make these impacts. And I want to set the standard in Turks and Caicos for ABA services so that anywhere in the world that my clients end up later down in life or whatever, and their parents have to seek services for them, they have a high value system of what services should look like. I don't know if that's the mentality of all the RBTs around the world, but that's the mentality of me, and that's the mentality of the people that I train and who are working with me.
Yeah, I mean, you're truly a great representative for the behavior analysis field because of your passion and your drive to do this right, to do this efficiently, to value people's time, to use sort of every ounce of your time. I think it should be the way every RBT looks at these things. I think our field, as I'm sure you know, has a lot of criticism right now, and a lot of this I think relates to how our frontline folks are trained and how they're representing the field. So I think you're a great model for that. We don't have time to go through your whole presentation, but I'm wondering if you could just tell me a little bit about what you mean by low intensity interventions in the Caribbean from your BABA presentation.
Sure. Well, we all know, like, the standard is supposed to be 40 hours a week for ABA services in order for it to be successful, in order to have those outcomes that we need. And as I explained earlier, we don't have that kind of access. We don't have that kind of setup, insurance, schools, centers. We don't have that. We're just now trying to make an impact in Turks and Caicos with ABA alone. Just having people understand what ABA is, or knowing what ABA is. Like I said, 15 years ago, people didn't really know about autism. So now we're on another wave of talking about ABA. And so low intensity services in Turks and Caicos looks like one-on-one sessions, 30 minutes to 1 hour per week, a maximum 2 hours for people who can really afford it. That's what low intensity is. Low intensity is that intentionality that I spoke about. Parent-led goals. Parent leads what's supposed to be happening in that room. And we are intentional every time we go there. Every time we come together, right? Low intensity looks like, sometimes twice a month, because that's all the parent could afford right now, right? Low intensity looks like, everybody working together and trying to train parents and give them tips and skills that they can use at home. As a matter of fact, I wrote a guide for parents last year, and I'm launching it this year, an NET play guide, because I had found out from different cultures that certain cultures, Jay, just do not play with their children. They do not. They send their children to play, but they do not play with them. And I had parents that were struggling to say, I don't know what to do, Maxia. I don't know. And having the parent in the room at the beginning, finding out that they don't interact with their children, they don't play with them. Some parents had to be taught or are being taught how to play, how to interact, how to talk with their
Wow.
children, even when they're not speaking back to you, even when they're not maybe following those instructions, but continuing to be a part of their day and continuing to let them hear your voice and help them to move forward into that. So low intensity services looks like training. It looks like training parents for free, not paid, for free. Them tips, giving them information. Low intensity looks like working yourself out of a job. Low intensity looks like goals, our goals as RBTs, IBTs, looking like maintenance and generalization all the time. We need these skills to be generalized and maintained because we realize the children cannot come to the center forever. They don't have that 40 hours and the insurance to pay for it. They don't have that. So there's going to come a time when the parent is going to say, I no longer can continue services. But how do we make an impact that lasts, forever? How do we maintain those skills, right? And generalize those skills so that even when the intervention is not present, it still can be going on. It still can be happening. The child is affected positively for the rest of their life. And that's what low intensity services look like for us.
You're as we've already mentioned, you as the first and only RBT, now an IBT, you're starting to provide some supervision for others who are trained to become IBTs. What does kind of the behavioral workforce look like in Turks and Caicos right now, and how accessible is training for behavior technicians and potentially behavior analysts? And are you training to become a behavior analyst?
Yeah, so behavior therapists on the island obviously is very limited in terms of RBTs. I'm still the person only in the Turks and Caicos. I have another friend who became an RBT, but she lives in Florida. She's from Turks and Caicos, but she practices in Florida. The young lady that I mentioned, her name is Kishana Garland, she was my first supervisee. We got her trained under the IBAO, and that is the IBT role, like I told you, it's the International Behavior Therapist, that I also the role that I also carry, and that she became the second IBT, obviously, in Turks and Caicos. We have another lady that went off to school. I think she did her master's in behavior, some behavior work. I don't remember the exact field. And she has a private center as well, but she never went under any organization like the BACB or the IBAO or any of the other ones that are out there right now. So, and then the government, they had a BCBA, and they would, like, for the past few years, they've been getting BCBAs from different countries, but those people are on contract. So when their contract is over, or if they decide that they don't want to renew their contract, then we lose them. So right now, they're not available. Like, right now, I've heard from parents that were getting some services from them for free, that their services have been put on hold. So right now, I don't know what's happening in terms of the next steps for government with providing behavior care. So right now we're looking at 2 IBTs in our country and 1 private person that is doing the work. That's the only thing I know about and that's in the country. That's in Turks and Caicos, not just on. But and we both are located in Providenciales, which is one of the islands in Turks and Caicos, and there are still other islands that are obviously inhabited and have kids that need services, which is something that I to reach out and try to support them, but it's very difficult because it's only two of us, right? But yeah, the access is extreme,
Right.
in terms of or limited rather in terms of IBTs, and it's also the demand obviously continues to rise and it continues to increase, and the need is there. I'm having clients come in 2 years old. 2 years ago, they weren't even born, and now they're here trying to get services or seeking diagnosis, which is also something that I do. I'm part of the diagnostic team as well. So I also train in the ADOS too. So I assist with
cool.
The assessment for autism. So those kind of things are like, I look at that and I'm like, this little toddler, this person is 2 years ago. 2 years ago, they weren't alive. They are here now. And so you can imagine the demand is increasing. I had been studying to do my IBA, but I had put that on pause. And I did everything. I did the field work, the hours and everything like that. But some personal things that came up and different things that came up and that I had to deal with my family, and I never sat the exam. But I did everything leading up to it. So I have all the knowledge, all the information, all the work. I can do everything. I have a wonderful supervisor who supervises me. I enjoy being accountable. I don't know if it's me, but I love having a supervisor. I don't like working on my own. And she's like, Maxia, you can do it. I know. And I'm like, yeah, I know I can do it, but I just love being, under you.
I get that.
She's just awesome, and she supports me along the way. She knows the decisions I've made with regards to the IBA and why I haven't done it. But I didn't have much desire to do it because I'm moving into a lot more of training and development. I want to help parents. We spoke before we came on about me completing the ACT training, and I've done some other trainings as well. I did one in the Cayman Islands as well under Dr. Greg Hanley as well. So that kind of the problem behaviors and dealing with that. I'm looking at that and supporting parents, like I say, by writing the play guide. Also facilitating ACT is something that I want to do, and I think they work well with ABA. And I really believe in how that makes a difference, because my supervisor was the one who introduced me to ACT, and I use it daily in my work. And she introduced me to a lot of Dr. Greg Hanley's work, and that I didn't know that that's what she was doing when she was supporting me until I went to the workshop. And then when I went to the workshop, I'm like, were you lying to me all this time? And she was like, I just wanted you to see for yourself that this is where I got, a lot of the things that I use with ABA from Dr. Greg Hanley. He's extraordinary. I enjoyed that workshop that we did, and I want to continue on to that as well. So I've been not moving away from ABA, but using supportive tools to combine with ABA that I believe strengthens the field, strengthening us as technicians, as therapists, strengthening what we can offer in the field of behavior therapy. That's the angle I'm going towards right now.
I mean, you can only do so many things. You wear an incredible amount of hats, more than anyone should have to wear doing this work. And I know your passion is around supporting and building capacity for families, for parents. And it really seems like that's kind of where you're geared toward with the foundation, with the ACT training, with the advocacy work, with kind of everything you're doing. And so with the low intensity supports, it's not sort of up to you to take every project and run that in. You also mentioned the Greg Hanley workshop. I believe you're talking about the one that the Caribbean Association for Behavior Analysis put on in the Cayman Islands.
Yes.
And so what's it been like having an association in the Caribbean that provides workshops like this, potentially provides some networking support. How has that been a value for you?
That's definitely on my top value list. Um, I sit on the board as a board member at large with
Mm,
the Caribbean Association for Behavior Analysis, and it's been incredible. My supervisor, Gabrielle Torres, she's the
mm,
president of that organization,
mm,
and I get to work with a lot of different um, behavior analyst, behavior therapist
mm,
across the Caribbean. I've made wonderful connections. I have people, like I said, I can call on. Like I said, we're
mm,
trying to get into the school system. My
mm,
supervisor, Kishana Garland, and my
mm,
colleague as well, she was the first one to go into the school as an IBT, and
mm,
she has a client there. And we just finished up a term in December with that client, and we had
mm,
positive outcomes. And I was able to reach out to one of my colleagues who does consulting for schools in the
mm.
Caribbean through CABA,
Amazing.
in order for us to get that started. We didn't have to reinvent the wheel. I could
Mm,
just reach out to him and say, "Hey, I need some help with this." And he's like, "Oh, sure. I'll make sure
mm,
that you have the information that you need. You have access, like I spoke to, showing us where to get CEUs, how to get, information and, obviously things that he has done." So being
mm,
a part of CABA is just awesome. It's a community as well where we can support each other. It was great that we were able to come together and go to Jamaica. We were able to come
mm,
together and put on the workshop with Dr. Hanley. We did a lot of work last year. We have a lot more work that we want to do this year. And it's just another honor, another privilege, another humbling experience because my value system is on 100. It is totally overwhelming and it's to the top. When
mm,
it comes to working with Cabo, it's exactly what I want to do. And I
mm,
told my supervisor this recently, and I told her, this is where I want to spend my money. This is where I want to spend my time. This
mm.
is where I want to use my resources.
Yeah.
This is the work I want to support.
They're an incredible group.
Yeah.
Whenever I interview a behavior analyst from another country, especially someone like you who's the only one often practicing in that country, I know that there's going to be situations where families are bringing outside help in. They're working with BCBAs possibly in the U.S. and other places. We may also have family, as you mentioned, because you thought about doing this at one point. We may have families from Turks and Caicos who leave the island and go somewhere else to get services. So I always like to talk a little bit about what culturally responsive care looks like in these regions. And what does culturally responsive care look like and mean in kind of the Turks and Caicos context?
Yeah, so yes, we do have a lot of families who have to end up leaving and seeking services outside, and I fully support them because as you said earlier, I can't do it all. I can't support everyone, and I believe that each family has to make a decision for themselves for what they
Mm-hmm.
need at that
Hmm.
time.
Hmm.
And yes, it's supportive as well because the families who leave, they're still supporting us here in Turks and Caicos. They're still a part of us. They're still a part of the community and they're still rooting us on. But they have their own journeys and they have to move forward into what they have to do. But cultural responsiveness it is community here. It
Hmm.
is how we deal with each other here, how we um incorporate, singing and food and, lifting up the children and
Hmm.
giving them a high five.
Hmm.
Things like gifts and, how we respond to gifts and, the things that the BCBA hold are so strict. We're very flexible because it's
Hmm.
a community, you don't just, you know, treat your community as if they are strangers. Your community
Yeah.
is your community. You're from Turks and Caicos. You're living in Turks and Caicos. You're a part of the special needs
Hmm.
community. We're a family. Me being a parent and a clinician gives me a multi, you know, different perspective as to
Hmm.
how I
Mhm.
relate with my parents. I see when they struggle. I see when they're trying, to do things and it's just not working out. I understand where they're coming from when they give me stories about what's happened to them in the past. I understand when they are feeling guilt or shame, or when they are feeling overwhelmed, or when they made, a decision to not do anything because they
Mm.
just couldn't handle it. Those conversations in our culture, may look like we're getting too attached and too involved with people's personal lives outside of our community. But inside of our community, it is extremely important for ABA to work, for ABA to become a part of the culture, to become a part of where we look to for intervention services
Mm.
and care, where we look for trust and safety, openness and being vulnerable. If we don't have those conversations, if we're not building rapport, if our culture is not saying,
Mm.
sending us, pictures on WhatsApp as to what the kids did this weekend, or, you
Mm.
know, asking, can you come to that birthday party, and saying, I may stop
Yeah.
by and just wave and show my face, that's important to our parents. That's important to our clients, that they know that they have that connection with us.
Mm.
And I think it's a human connection, but in the Caribbean, that culture is really protected. It's needed. Um, and it can be the difference between accepting or denying services.
Mm.
And I believe that in Turks and Caicos, we have developed a strong community over the past 15 years. And I
Yeah.
believe that we rely on each other. Um, we look out for each other. Outside people come and go, but we know that, we're here. We're here for the long haul. We're here for the long run. So whatever we have to try to work on it. We try to build it up, not try to tear it down. And if anybody comes in trying to tear it down, yeah, they won't like it. So
Mm.
the end of the day, culture and responding to that culture is understanding even what the different cultures that live in Turks and Caicos need, because we are a melting pot. We have a lot of different people from different countries who
Mm.
live and work in Turks and Caicos, but we are still a part of a unique community of people with autism and other related challenges. We are, you know, we're a family. The best way to describe it, we are a family, and that response um to those cultures, I think it makes all the difference in the work that I do,
Mm.
the work that me and my team do on a regular basis. That makes the difference. If you don't understand the culture of the place that you are in, and you don't appropriately adjust, respond, react, or act,
Mm.
you know, you you will fail, because people
Mm.
will reject you. They will cut you off. They will go and find help otherwise if you're not connecting with them in the way that they need it to be done.
Mm. It's the beginning of April, the beginning of Autism Acceptance and Awareness Month around the world. This month has really been sort of central to all the work you've done for the last 15 years since Israel was born, and you mentioned before we chatted that April's also the month of your mother's birthday.
Yeah.
So it holds a lot of importance for you, and so does this month. When you think about autism acceptance in the Caribbean, what does real acceptance look like to you, not just awareness?
Yeah. So, yes, April is a very important month. Um, for us, World Autism Awareness Month is the most
Hmm.
active month of the year for us in Turks and Caicos, being
Hmm.
World Autism Awareness Month, which
Hmm.
is um World Autism Awareness Day on April 2nd, and the whole
Hmm.
month being celebrated, is something that we brought to the community of Turks and
Hmm.
Caicos in 2015.
Hmm.
Um, and we decided to join up with the world in celebrating. So autism acceptance in the Caribbean for us um started with awareness.
Hmm.
And like I said, a lot of people didn't know what autism was, and now that they are aware, accepting also extends to inclusion
Hmm.
in everyday life, in social, educational, community, everything that goes on in the human life. And in the Caribbean, as I spoke and I said earlier about it being so important for those communities to come together and to be accepted as they are. People being able to bring their kids out and have fun, and enjoy a beach day or a day at the park or a day at a birthday party or someone's party. Every April we try to have some party on a parade, where people can walk. We choose a short distance so the kids can walk and take their time and get to the location. When they get there, we have a party and we have games for them to play, and they can be themselves. If someone's kid is having a meltdown or a tantrum, everybody helps, everybody assists. Everybody's, no one's staring, no one's looking around at them like, what's happening? They get to be in a safe community. So being able to be accepted and knowing that, hey, you're not in this alone, you're not struggling by yourself. We understand how you feel. Hey, that happened to me last week. Like I get it, right? That acceptance and inclusion into the community, recognizing that, our children have a space, they belong here, they're supposed to be here. If you're uncomfortable, maybe you should leave. But they are comfortable where they are. We are growing, we are moving, we are working, but we are a part of the community. We're doing it together. And, you know, um, in the Caribbean, I think acceptance for us looks like that. Um, bringing our kids out into the open, bringing the people who are affected by autism, the families coming forward and being in the open and being in the open and not ashamed of who we are or what we represent, and not moving away or not stepping back for anyone or not changing who we are for anyone. I've removed Israel from spaces because I was like, you guys don't fit him. And I've told him that. I said, you don't fit them. They want you to be like everyone else, and I'm not gonna allow them to change you. You're good the way you are. And he's asked me that question. He said, I thought I was doing better. You are doing better. You are doing well. And don't let anybody tell you otherwise. Our children need to hear that. They need to know that you are fine. You have a diagnosis, but the diagnosis is not who you are. It only makes up a part of who you are, right? And that is not going to overshadow your whole life. You're going to be able to do great things. You're going to be able to do things that you want to do. You're going to try and you're going to fail sometimes. You're going to succeed sometimes. You're going to be happy sometimes and sad sometimes. You're going to experience all the things of life, and just because you cry or you're sad, that doesn't mean that you're rude or something is wrong with you. Just because you struggle, that doesn't mean that that's because you have autism. So therefore, that's why you're struggling. Everybody struggles, right? Let's accept each other as human beings on this planet called that is more than enough of challenges, even by itself, right? So let's not add anything extra to those who are having challenges with autism or other related challenges. Let's not put extra things on them to worry about, to think about, try to feel unaccepted or rejected about. I shouldn't feel bad about shedding a tear or being frustrated if I couldn't handle a certain situation, because we all go through it. So acceptance in the Caribbean, I believe we need to step forward. We need to put ourselves in spaces and make other people uncomfortable. I think we need to be able to not explain, but tell people or show people that we are able to do more than you think and what you perceive we should be doing, right? And like I said, I feel like if you are uncomfortable in that space, then you should leave, and not me.
Absolutely.
I'm not going to change myself, or I'm not going to ask my son or any of the clients that I work with to change who they are to make you feel comfortable and happy or accepted. They are accepted, they are loved, they are supported. So if you're looking for for a challenge or or a team or whatever, they got a whole backing behind them. They have a community behind them.
Mm.
If you want, if you want trouble, you could get trouble. Not trying to make trouble, but if you want trouble, you can get trouble. But at the end of the day, we're not leaving. We're not going to make ourselves small. We're not going to make ourselves scarce. We're not going to dumb down ourselves, or we're not going to laugh a little softer, or we're not going to just, try to remove our quirkiness or whatever it is that you have an issue with. We're not going to do that. We're going to work towards our values just like any other human being. And we're going to work hard to try to do that. And we're going to be the best that we can. We're going to work towards our God-given potential. That's what every human being should be doing. Yeah.
Amen. Amen.
Yeah. Amen.
Powerful message, Maxcia. Maxcia, this was fantastic. Such an honor to share a space with you and hear your story and hear about all the great work you've done over the past 15, 16, 18 years. Can't wait to see what you're doing in another 20. This was incredible. Thanks so much for sharing your story. It was great having you today.
Thank you. Thank you for having me. It was awesome.
Third secret word is elephant. If you enjoyed this conversation, check out these episodes of Behavior Speak. Episode 93, Behavior Analysis in the Caribbean, with Kim Woolery, Gabby Torres, and Sloan Farr-Strang. And episode 97, Bridging the Gap, Culturally Responsive Telehealth and Behavior Analysis, with Kimberly Woolery. And finally, episode 187, Culturally Grounded Autism Training for Black Parents, with Camille Proctor. You can find us on Instagram and TikTok, and subscribe to our YouTube page at Behavior Speak. And if you enjoyed this episode, please leave us a review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify.